Say goodbye, Data.
Goodbye, Data.
Hello everyone, Jay Warden here, and welcome to my recap and review of the episode The Outrageous Okona, a bland, crappy episode with a Han Solo type rogue while Data tries to learn about humour. Don't forget those spoilers, otherwise, enjoy. The Enterprise is moseying about through a system when Worf picks up a small empty cargo ship approaching with a single lifeform on board. As it seems to be having some navigation issues, Picard moves in and gives it a call where we meet Captain Okona, a typical Han Solo rogue if I ever saw one. Troy reassures Picard he's harmless, so Picard kindly offers to help fix his problems, to which Okona graciously accepts. Once aboard with his damaged parts and disarmed by Worf, he immediately goes to work on charming the ladies, starting with 90s Lois Lane, who took a break from the Daily Planet to man the transporters today. Riker manages to steer him away though and has Data and Wesley escort him down to engineering to get his part fixed. Okona tries to joke with Data, but of course Data has no real understanding of humour, but tries nonetheless to give a heartfelt laugh. After a brief stop in engineering with LaForge to fix his damaged part and continuing to endear himself charmingly to everyone, Okona takes a stroll with Data and questions him on his ability to feel things and understand humour, which of course Data doesn't. A little exasperated, Okona heads off to what he really came down here for, a seductive liaison with Lois Lane, who suggestively takes him to her bed despite only having met him for 30 seconds briefly in the transporter room. Data though seems somewhat perturbed by his inability to understand humour, and so goes to Guinan for some advice, who proceeds instead to tell a very bad joke before suggesting he try and get smarter on the subject. So he heads off to the holodeck for a comedy night with Joe Piscopo, who tries a couple of routines to make Data laugh to no avail, so he tries to speed things up and learn some story jokes and promptly tries it back on Guinan in 10 forward and fails utterly. Before he can try to tell another joke though, Picard calls him to the bridge as an unknown vessel is approaching. It refuses to answer hails before locking lasers on the ship, which are hilariously useless as weapons go. They finally contact them and a chap called Devon demands Picard heave to and prepare to be boarded. It seems he has some beef with Okona, calling him a known criminal and really wants him in custody. Before we can learn more though, a second ship approaches from the other direction, so Picard puts Devon on hold, calls the other ship up, and we meet Cushell. He too is demanding that Okona be turned over to him, not caring that Devon also wants Okona, and even claims they'll try to take Okona by force if necessary. Picard thinks it's time for some explanations, calling Okona to the bridge, but there's no response, so sends Worf down to drag him back to the bridge. We find that Okona's been a busy boy, seducing women all over the ship, but he's finally brought to the bridge and Picard demands some answers. Okona's being evasive though and says he can't think of any reason why they'd want him. Picard calls Devon again, who finally acquiesces and shows Picard why he's a little miffed, dragging his pregnant daughter onto the screen. It seems Okona went and put a bun in her oven and then fucked off, understandably making Devon pissed off with him. After putting both men on a conference call so we can stop the annoying back and forth, we also learn that Cushell wants Okona for stealing some valuable jewel. Both men are prepared to go to war if Okona is not handed over to them or is handed over to the other. We can't help but notice that his son is in the background and both he and Devon's daughter appear to be very uncomfortable at what's going on right now, suggesting something else is going on here. Picard has a private chat with Okona, who regrets putting them all in this situation but professes his innocence in all of this. As there seems to be a stalemate, Okona suggests he simply leaves the ship and let them try to catch him, to which Picard sees no alternative but to agree. In engineering, as LaForge finishes up his repairs, Wesley quizzes Okona on his way of life, and eventually Okona realises that he can't just run away from this and decides to make a stand instead. So, in order to try and resolve the situation, Picard invites all parties to the ship to see if we can't get to the bottom of all this nonsense, to which they agree. Once they're together, Okona lays out the situation, and it seems he's got a crafty plan in mind as his words manipulate the respective son and daughter to protest and finally admit the truth, that Cushell's son is really the father of the child, and that he gave the stolen jewel to Okona as a pledge of marriage to her, with both wanting to avoid upsetting their fathers into war with each other. And with the truth finally out, Okona convinces them all to get along and accept the marriage. Meanwhile, Data makes one final try at stand-up comedy by bringing Guinan to his holo comedy set, but fails miserably, so Guinan tries to give him a life lesson on the matter as he muses that there's nothing more uniquely human to attain for than making someone laugh. Finally, Okona's ship is cut loose and under its own power, and is wished a fair voyage as the crew head off to their next adventure. Well, I certainly didn't enjoy this one very much, and I remember why I tend to skip it on a rewatch. It's not totally unsalvageable, but it's still pretty bad, and totally forgettable. There's no deep, meaningful plot or moral story here, and as a result there's very little to say about this episode either, so welcome to perhaps the shortest review I've ever done yet. Let's start with what little good there was. First off, our main guest star, Billy Campbell, did a fairly decent job in the role of Okona, I thought. He's likeable, charming, and I can see why he was in the running for the role of Riker when TNG was trying to cast his actors. Yep, you heard right, this guy was possibly going to be your William T. Riker before Jonathan Frakes won the role. Campbell at least manages to elevate the material, bad as it is, into a somewhat watchable, mostly just for his interactions with the rest of the crew. His character though is laughably good at bedding women at record speeds, including a young Terry Hatcher in one of her earliest TV roles. I like that Wesley seemed enamoured with him, and I can believe that a character like Okona would be cool and interesting to an impressionable young mind like Wesley. Finally, I think there is some merit to Data's B-plot quest to try and understand humour, but I thought Guinan was pretty wasted here, and her own jokes are just as unfunny as Joe Piscopo's. What really worked was when Data gave his final performance to the hollow audience who just laugh at anything he says or does. His slow realisation of this fact is quite sad really, and though he can't feel emotions in the way he does, Data is clearly disappointed at the fact, and it's a little heartbreaking to watch. Other than that though, there isn't even much plot to talk about here. Okona is rescued by the crew to fix his damaged ship, makes friends with the crew and the ladies in particular, and then we're finally introduced to the meat of the episode, and I use that term very loosely, where two families from opposing planets in the same system threaten the Enterprise and demand Okona be turned over to them for either impregnating one's daughter or stealing the other's prized treasure. This is basically a Romeo and Juliet style drama here, with two opposing powerful families who hate each other while their respective children fall in love. The familial bickering that takes place is awful, boring and cringy, with both of the actors playing the respective fathers hamming it up badly and being extremely one-dimensional overbearing father types. Even worse are their respective offspring, with Devon's daughter in particular winning the award for Worst Actress of the Week, or at least the season, with stilted and completely unconvincing line delivery. This could actually be some of the worst melodramatic acting I've seen since Code of Honor. The only levity found within this plot is the initial threats made by them towards the Enterprise. Their ships are so pathetically armed that they don't even need to raise their shields here, and I enjoyed Picard jokingly saying that they should go to yellow alert in case they need to surrender, as well as Worf insulting them under his breath. At the end of the day, it's all resolved far too easily, with the son and daughter exonerating Okona by admitting the truth of their actions and their respective fathers easily accepting their union, despite everyone suggesting earlier that they would never accept it and even go to war with each other over it. And really, that's all I've got to say. As you can see, a pretty bad episode, a contender easily for one of the worst this season already, but as far as Season 2 quality goes, we're now 2 for 2 on bad and good, which is still a better ratio than Season 1 so far. Let's hope the next episode is a bit more watchable, as the crew pick up an intriguing dignitary who's completely deaf but must bring about peace between two warring factions in the episode, loud as a whisper. I hope you enjoyed this short video, and if you did then please do check out my other reviews as well, and also if you haven't yet then please like, subscribe and share. Until next time, this is Jay Warden, signing off.